Hi guys, this is Hirosaki. This story is all about what if Naruto was in Justice League. For decades, he had traveled from one corner of the known universe to the other, searching for a way back to his home planet. But after nearly 100 years of fruitless efforts, even with his legendary stubbornness, Naruto grew weary. Now, he had to let it go. Before we start, kindly like and subscribe to this channel, and look over the description box for the author of this amazing storyline. Welcome aboard. Chapter 17 Departure. A bike burst through one of the windows of the watchtower's control room, and a terrible suction force came from the vacuum of space. Alarms rang loudly, but fortunately, right after the window was shattered, a blast window lowered itself from the wall and covered the broken window, stopping the suction from outside. Superman was the first to react, and he flew to the newcomer in anger. "What's the meaning of this, Lobo? You made me a promise that you'll never come to Earth and cause trouble for me or anyone else living here." The gray-skinned muscular alien wearing a biker outfit was none other than Lobo, the last Charnian. "Don't get your panties in a bunch, Boy Scout. I didn't come to Earth, we're still in space. And I didn't come to cause trouble, I'm here for a delivery. Delivery. See? The main man keeps his word." As he said that, he pulled on the chain wrapped around his forearm, and a large metallic box was yanked forth and slammed on the floor. The box was metallic and large enough for a human to fit in, but its walls were red, heated up almost to the point of melting. Superman felt the beginning of a headache. The Charnian was a pain to deal with. "What delivery? For whom?" Green Lantern asked. "Not for you, Green Dork. Don't pipe up." Green Lantern was already itching for a fight. Lobo's provocation was just the perfect excuse for him to let out some of the inner anger he accumulated from Hawkgirl's apparent indifference when she left earlier that day. But Superman raised an arm and stopped him from starting a fight that they could not easily finish. He understood that the Charnian did not come looking for trouble, and that he technically had not broken his promise either. At that moment, a masked blonde man carrying a fox cub on his shoulder came through the doors of the control room. "Sorry guys, the delivery is for me." The previously curled up and sleeping fox cub opened his eyes, and his bloodlust flooded the room. Jumping off from Naruto's shoulder, in a mere second, he became so large that the 3-story tall control room could barely contain his size. "Where is the rat?" His voice sounded demonic, filled with killing intent. "What is going on? Naruto, control your fox or he might wreck the whole watchtower if he starts to fight," Batman said urgently. Naruto told Kyuubi. "Don't kill the rat right away, Karama. I want to hear the bastard say it. I want to ask him what made him betray me after more than 20 years of working together. What gave him the courage to backstab me? He was crazy for money, but not crazy enough to forfeit his life for it. He should have known that this is how it was going to end the moment he tried to get me killed." He spoke calmly, but the cold fury in his voice made even Lobo unwittingly take a step back in wariness. The current Naruto was no longer like his teenage self, someone that would just brush over people when they betrayed him, or when they tried to kill him. "I don't know what's going on, but you're not going to kill anyone under my eyes, not as long as we are here." Superman stepped forth and said. All of a sudden, 4 shadow clones appeared next to Naruto. In the split of a second, the clones performed a short sequence of hand seals, and a gale of wind burst from their mouths simultaneously. It was a wind release technique named Great Breakthrough. But he was not in the mood for making cool poses and shouting names of jutsu then. From the moment the clones were summoned to the moment they cast the wind technique, barely 1 second passed. The 7 members of the Justice League were unexpectedly pushed back by the gales of wind and thrown to the opposite side of the control room. But none of them was hurt because he had never intended to hurt them in the first place, he only wanted to push them to the side. In the next second, the 4 clones rushed out and formed a square shape with Naruto, Kyuubi, and Lobo at its center. The 4 of them brought their hands together like in a prayer and then crossed their fingers. Instantly, bright purple walls of light rose from behind them from the floor until they reached the tall ceiling of the control room and encapsulated them together with their original body, Kyubi, and Lobo in a cubic formation of light. Unnerved by the sudden development, Lobo took a massive crowbar from his bike and narrowed his eyes. "Don't worry. This is just a barrier to prevent the Justice League from annoying me like before," Naruto said to dispel the Charnian's worries, and then turned his head towards the Justice League, who were just then standing up from the floor where the gales of wind had thrown them. He told them, "This is the Four Corners Violet Field Formation, a barrier. Unlike other barrier spells, not only that it protects the things inside it, everything that touches it will be set aflame. For your own good, don't attack it." Unconvinced by Naruto's warning, Superman flew at him and punched the violet wall of light. The barrier trembled heavily under his powerful strike, but the Kryptonian also let out a startled cry of pain when his arm was engulfed by flames. If it was regular fire, he would not bat an eye. He could even withstand the flames of the sun. Mystic energies, however, were a different thing altogether. A breath of ice blew from his mouth and his arm quickly became encased in a block of ice, snuffing out the fire before it could cause serious damage. "Don't be careless, guys, this is a magic spell," Superman warned. Wonder Woman could not help asking, "Why are you so eager to attack them?" Momentarily, the other members of the Justice League stared at her blankly. Neither Lobo, nor Naruto, nor Karama are from Earth, and the one who Lobo captured is not from Earth either. "You're making the same mistake you made when he came for the Tamaranian girl, picking up a fight with him for no reason. He doesn't want to fight us. Look, he even cast a barrier spell to keep us from interfering." Superman clenched his hands into fists, and the block of ice encasing in his right arm shattered under his strength. He understood Wonder Woman's reasoning, and he logically agreed with what she said, but on the other side, the idea of seeing someone get executed under his very eyes revolted him. "You want us to just sit and watch how he kills someone? What if he's innocent?" Flash said. "That couldn't be farther from the truth. Naruto told me about him. His name is Roanak. That man used to be his information broker for years. They were partners. But Roanak betrayed him, sending him right into the Psion's trap, who wanted to capture and dissect him. That's what led to the Psion's annihilation a few weeks ago," Wonder Woman explained. The rest of the Justice League stopped charging at the barrier when they heard her explanation. While they were talking amongst themselves, Lobo dragged the large metallic box in front of Naruto and used the crowbar in his other hand to pry it open. An acrid, stomach-churning smell suddenly filled the entire room, and it made everyone in the Justice League cover their noses with their hands. Naruto was wearing his mask, which filtered any unwelcome/harmful smells or gases, so he was not affected, but Kyubi growled, "It smells like burnt flesh. What did you do to him?" The large fox's demonic voice rang. "He's been crying like a scared schoolgirl in my ears for hours, begging me to release him. He kinda got on my nerves, so I roasted his ass a little with my engines. But I guess I cooked the rat." "Ah ha ha ha," Lobo said and laughed boisterously. Naruto palmed his forehead through the mask. "You imbecile, you were supposed to bring him alive. What did you even bring him here for anymore?" Lobo came and put an arm around Naruto's shoulder, as if they were drinking buddies in a bar. "Ah, come on, Goldilocks, don't be like that. You were gonna bust his head anyway, so what's the big deal? Look at the good part, your fox gets to eat freshly grilled rat barbecue." Naruto took Lobo's arm from around his shoulders and twisted it in annoyance, making Lobo cry out. "Ow, I'll let go. What's your problem, man?" "Watch your mouth when you talk about Karama," Naruto said dangerously and kicked the Charnian away from him, making him crash against the floor onto his face. "And just so you know, this doesn't count as you repaying my favor." Lobo groaned but otherwise looked unscathed. When he heard that his debts were not cleared out, however, he bristled. "Hey! Don't think you can swindle the main man. I searched for this rat for weeks and then chased after him through 3 planetary systems before I finally caught him. He was a slippery one. In my books, I've more than repaid you what I owed." Naruto let a drawn-out sigh. "Greatest bounty hunter my ass," he muttered under his breath. "Why did I have any expectations from him anyway? My fault for trusting an idiot. Truly, if you want something done right, do it yourself." Lobo grinned from one ear to another when he saw Naruto not contradicting him, conveniently choosing to ignore the rest of the things he said. "I knew we'd see eye to eye. If you need anything else, you got my number. No more freebies next time though. The main man ain't doing charity no more." With that, Lobo hopped on his space hog and, after Naruto's clones cancelled the barrier technique, he burst through another window, causing mayhem once more as the vacuum of space started to suck out everything from the room. Fortunately, another blast window came down from the wall and replaced the other broken glass. "Jesus Christ!" Green Lantern exclaimed when he came closer and saw the still warm and smoking half-melted corpse of the humanoid rat. "I think I'm going to be sick," Flash said, and right in the next moment, he bent down and emptied the contents of his stomach. "What should we do with this?" Wonder Woman asked, forcing back the bile rising in her throat. It was her first time as well that she was seeing someone who died so terribly. "Maybe your fox can eat it?" "Pretty sure he's eaten far worse things before," Superman said without thinking, but a massive tail suddenly slammed into his face, sending him crashing through several walls towards the interior of the watchtower. "How about you eat a donkey dick, you piece of shit? What do you think I am? Your garbage dumpster?" QB shouted. The fox was already angry at Lobo for not bringing Rue and AK alive. He had wanted to torture the rat to the death and hear him scream in agony, but he was robbed of that pleasure. Superman disrespecting him like that was the last drop that spilt the glass. When he saw the others readying themselves for a fight, Naruto said, "In all the fairness, that was a dick move from Superman. He had it coming. Your fox attacked Superman just because of a few words?" Green Lantern rebuked, his power ring glowing with a green light. "How about I take a shit on the floor now and tell you in all the seriousness to eat it? You okay with that?" Naruto bit back. "Or maybe just because he looks like a fox, he's lesser than a human. You're a Green Lantern. You of all people here should not discriminate. You should know that humans are just a fraction of the sentient living beings when you take the universe at large. That's different." Green Lantern tried to argue, and his power ring glowed brighter. He looked ready to shoot a blast of light at any moment. "Shut up," Naruto said in a demonic voice no different than that of the enormous fox standing next to him. Green Lantern froze. A terrifying killing intent assaulted his senses, and the green light flickering around his power ring was extinguished. Someone with a willpower as formidable as his should not lose his marbles just from someone's murderous spirit, but, for some reason, his entire body became paralyzed. What he did not know was that it was not only killing intent that paralyzed him, but the technique that Naruto casted in conjunction with it. It was a jutsu used frequently by the elite shinobi back in his homeworld, the ANBU, to capture their targets when they needed them alive. Kanashibari no Jutsu. Kyuubi reverted to his tiny form as a fox cub and blew out a sigh. "Let it go, Naruto. I'm not angry anymore." The fox knew that he was the blonde's Achilles heel. Naruto always got worked up and tended to go overboard when someone treated Kyuubi like a mindless animal. The fox stopped him before someone from the Justice League said another stupid thing and aggravated him even more. They did not have a spaceship anymore to leave as they pleased, and he was not in the mood to fight again against all of them either. "How do we always end up fighting with them?" Flash muttered after Naruto and Kyuubi left the control room. "He really doesn't stomach us, does he? That creature may look like a fox from Earth, but he's not an animal. He is someone with a personality and intelligence just like the rest of us. It's not that Uzumaki Naruto doesn't stomach us, but that the fox is like family to him, and someone insulted him. Martian Manhunter said. What Superman said was very rude. I guess it was my mistake, but that was quite the overreaction, Superman said while dusting off his suit. There was not even a scratch on him. I didn't think the fox would be so proud and react like that. Batman suddenly called out Wonder Woman, who was trying to slip away from the room unnoticed. Wonder Woman, where are you going? I'm going to check up on those two and keep an eye on them. Someone has to make sure they don't do something crazy, she said, and before Batman could add anything, she flew out of the room. When the Amazon princess left, the five men looked at each other, and then at the metallic box with the still warm, half-melted corpse of a humanoid rat in it. Realizing why the princess had scurried away so quickly, Batman said what was on everyone's mind at that moment. We were duped, Superman said in exasperation. Keeping an eye on them. She left only so she wouldn't have to deal with the corpse, didn't she? Athena's wisdom, indeed. Having successfully escaped from dealing with the disgusting remains of Ruanak, Wonder Woman almost broke into a smile when she arrived in front of Naruto's room. She was about to knock on the door, but she stopped when she heard a conversation coming from inside. 500 mass units of dilustal for a clunker? The hell, why don't you just rob me already? Naruto's voice came from behind the door. Ma, don't be so quick to anger, Mr. Uzumaki. You've been in the business for so long, you should know how the supply and demand rule works. Certainly, in ordinary conditions, this ship would be a bit cheaper, but when you consider the fact that it's on such short notice, the price is bound to increase. An oily voice could be heard from what Wonder Woman assumed it was Naruto's communication device. It sounded like the voice of a merchant. The Amazon princess could automatically understand and speak any language because of Athena's blessing, but she could also discern that the language spoken by the merchant was not from Earth. It was alien. You call that a bit cheaper? 500 mass units of dilustal are worth 3 to 4 times more than that dreg you call spaceship. As I said, on such short notice, I doubt anyone can just willy-nilly give you a better offer. If you think about it, the price isn't that unreasonable. Of course, I do have much better options available too, but the price for those will increase accordingly. No thank you. I'll buy it from someone else. Good luck with scamming other people, Naruto said flatly. Wait, how about 450? No. 400 mass units then. This is the lowest dash. The transmission was interrupted and silence instilled in the room. Don't wait outside, Diana, come in, Naruto called, startling her a little. Sorry, I didn't mean to eavesdrop, Wonder Woman said when she entered his room. It was a small room that they had transformed into a bedroom for Naruto to live in while he recovered. It was not large, but it had a bed, a desk and a wardrobe too, not that he had ever used the wardrobe. It's okay, there was no secret. She came behind him at the desk he was sitting. A faint but sweet fragrance entered his nostrils when she bent down over his shoulder to see what he was doing on his tablet. You're looking for a spaceship? She asked when she saw several dozens of spaceship models with various prices below their pictures and lists of specifications for each of them. Currently, Naruto was browsing a black market intergalactic portal. One could find there anything from weapons and warships to robots, living slaves, and even viruses. As long as one had the materials that the seller was willing to barter their goods for, anything could be purchased. Yes, I've recovered completely by now, he said. Ah, you're leaving already? She asked. He turned his chair around to look at her. You sound disappointed. He was not wearing his mask at that moment, but Diana did not avoid his eyes. I am, she admitted, much to his surprise. I enjoyed your company, especially over the past week. He sat up from his chair, but by doing so, he realized that they were standing too close to each other when they were both on their feet. It was the same for me too, Naruto said, his eyes never leaving hers. Standing that close face to face with a man that she felt conscious of was a new experience for the Amazon princess. She had danced with Bruce Wayne before, but his indifference had prevented the apparition of a connection between them. What she was experiencing in the present was different from anything she had been through before. The intensity of those red eyes boring into her soul brought her a funny feeling in her stomach, and although they were not touching, she could feel on the skin that her armor left exposed the warmth radiating from his body. Not doing it consciously, the tip of her tongue stuck out and wet her lips, her glistening saliva making them redder and more alluring than before. Naruto's eyes were involuntarily drawn to the motion and his blood surged to his face at the erotic sight of her moistening her lips. Her actions suddenly made him aware of his own dry lips, and he could not help following her example, and wetting his lips with his tongue too. Similarly, her eyes were drawn to his lips as well, and when their eyes locked again, a healthy flush lighted both their faces. The sound of swallowing came from Naruto when Diana almost imperceptibly came an inch closer and said in a whisper, "Do you really have to leave? I would love to have the chance to know you better." The charm of her innocent yet devilish sensuality lit a fire in him. His mind was cloudy and he felt dizzy as if he was drunk. "Your friends don't like me," he said with the last bit of rationality he possessed, also in a whisper. "But I do. I like you," Diana confessed and stepped even closer, their faces inches away, their noses almost touching. His heart shook and skipped several beats. It was as though time stopped for him at that moment. He could feel her warm breath on his lips. It tasted sweet. It made him thirsty. He craved more. If only her breath was like that, then how would those ripe and inviting red lips taste like? His red eyes found her blue eyes once more. So close they were that he could see his stunned reflection in her enlarged pupils, and the needy expression he wore on his face. He wanted to kiss her so badly. He wanted nothing more than to feast on those luscious lips and squeeze her sinful body in his arms. "What's stopping you from doing just that?" a voice in his mind asked. Indeed, what was stopping him? Nothing. Reaching that conclusion, time started flowing again. With one more look at her eyes, his mouth descended onto hers like lightning. For the split of a second, their first contact numbed them. But then, pleasure flooded their senses, and they moaned in each other's mouth. Though it lasted for a short time, the intensity of the kiss left them breathless. Both their faces were flushed with infatuation and the tension between them was almost palpable. This time, it was Diana who took the initiative. She brought her arms around his neck and pushed the back of his head with her hands, bringing his face closer to her. Their lips mashed against each other once more, and their noses rubbed against each other with the same passion as their mouths. His strong arms wrapped around her thin waist, closing the gap between their bodies. Her voluptuous breasts were squashed against his hard chest, and the feeling of his bulge pressing against her core made her raise one of her long legs and wrap it around his waist, in an effort to press herself against him harder. She gasped in their kiss when one of his hands left the small of her back and trailed down her buttocks, his fingers greedily fondling the elastic and meaty flesh before they trailed further below to grab on the thick and muscular thigh that rose to embrace his waist. He could not get enough of her. Her kiss tasted like nectar and her body evoked a flame in him that he had never felt before. She could not get enough of him. The warmth and the mysterious energy seeping out of his body aroused a passion inside her that she could not control. Like a moth drawn to a flame, she approached his flame fully knowing that her passion might consume her, but willing to pay the price nonetheless. Not content with only tasting his lips, her tongue sneaked through his lips into his mouth, to meet his tongue. She had fooled around with some of her Amazon sisters a few times before, she was no stranger to kissing. Her experienced tongue wrapped around his tongue sensually, and then coaxed it to enter her mouth, proceeding to suck on it greedily. She drank his saliva, massaged his lips with hers and sucked on his tongue, and he surrendered to her fully, letting her dominate his eager and inexperienced mouth. They got drunk from each other's fluids, and they used their whole bodies to express their hunger they need for each other. Repeatedly, they had to part gasping for air, but they dived back every time with even more passion and hunger than before. They lost track of time, sunken in their world of passion and pleasure. But as all good things can't last forever, their heaven was broken apart too when a very loud beeping sound came from his communication pad announcing an incoming transmission. As if woken from a trance, as if a spell was broken, they parted once more, but this time without rejoining. In the silence of the room, the beeping sounded even louder than usual, but Naruto could still not let go of her, his eyes looking at her as if he wanted to burn that image in his mind for eternity. The disheveled form of her long and silky black hair, her glistening with lust blue eyes, the rosiness in her unblemished cheeks, and the erotic gasps for air and silent moans coming through those deep red and plush lips, inflated from the loving abuse he had delivered on them. How can someone this beautiful exist? He exclaimed in awe as he cupped her face in his rough palms and caressed her cheeks with as much tenderness his calloused fingers were capable of. He closed his eyes and pressed his forehead against hers. I don't know what came over us, but I don't want it to end. Diana leaned into his touch and her eyes closed in bliss too. I've never felt anything like this before, she uttered in wonder. Don't leave. No way I'm letting you go after this. She leaned her face in, and she pressed her lips against his once more, taking his breath with a passionate kiss. The beeping coming from his communication pad stopped, and the two of them continued to embrace each other in silence for a long time. Come with me, Diana, he said again, his hand now tenderly caressing her hair, while she rested her chin on his shoulder, her head leaning against his. The Justice League can't control me, and they are afraid of what they can't control. I can't live here, like a caged beast, under their scrutiny 24/7. I can't trade off my freedom. She raised her face from his shoulder and looked at him with pleading eyes. I can't leave the earth. My mother, my sisters are here. My friends are here too. Stay with me, Naruto. I'm sure they will grow to accept you in time. Naruto placed a kiss on her forehead and sighed deeply before breaking their hug. Diana's beautiful face became downcast and her eyes wet. She understood his answer from his actions. He took a scroll out of his chest pocket and after pressing his palm on it, another communication pad appeared in a small plume of smoke. I would have been willing to make Earth my new home, but the Justice League and I don't mix. We are like oil and water. Even so, that doesn't mean we can't see each other and continue to keep in touch. He said and handed her the communication pad. Take this. It's a light-wave communication device. It ignores the space-time laws and we can talk to each other in real time no matter where I am in the universe. All major powers use this technology to communicate. It was produced by the gods of New Genesis. As for how it works, I have no idea. There comes a point where the lines between science and magic become very blurred. As far as I know, this technology could be very well considered magic. Though the prospect of not being able to stay together was paining her, she smiled briefly at his words. She understood that they lived in different worlds. He was like the bird freely soaring the skies, traveling the universe, while the Justice League were like a frog trapped at the bottom of the well. They were too different, they could never see eye to eye. But there may still be a chance, Diana said to herself. Once the Justice League becomes stronger, and they will no longer depend on my strength, I could join him. At the moment, she could not leave. The people of Earth needed her strength. But they still had a chance because they were both immortal. Time was not their enemy like it was for regular people. Only their feelings mattered. I want to come with you. I will come with you, but not now. Maybe in a few years. Will you wait for me? Diana asked. Naruto said categorically. Definitely. A smile of relief flashed on her face. Are you going to take Starfire with you too? Diana asked out of the blue. Starfire, huh? He said rhetorically. After Coriandar became friends with Supergirl, she changed her name to Starfire. It meant the same thing, it was just her name translated into English. I don't see a reason to take her. We're actually not that close, you know. She was just my bounty, someone that I had to rescue and protect. She has also found a place for herself here, hasn't she? Diana nodded and said. Yes, she's been living with Supergirl since almost 2 weeks ago. She started attending high school together with her, and they do small-time hero work together too. They're inseparable. I'm glad to hear that. Poor girl has had a very rough life until now. She deserves all the happiness she can get. Come to think of it, where is Karama? When Diana entered the room, QB had been on Naruto's bed, lazily chewing on some apples. The thought that QB had watched him and Diana swallowing each other's tongues for half an hour made his face become as red as the apples on the bed. He must have left the room a while ago. Oh my, look at that, you can blush too? How endearing, Diana said and giggled. She cupped his face with her hands to prevent him from looking away. He brought her back into arms and embraced her tightly. Diana hugging him back just a tad tighter in response filled his heart with warmth. No cheating in the meantime, she said, but did not dare to look at him. This time, it was her turn to press her head into his chest and look down for him to not see her embarrassed face. What dash? What cheating? Who would even like someone with a demonic face like mine? He said back flustered. I recall hearing something about the Queen of Almerac wanting your babies. Karama, that bastard. Naruto cussed. Not just that. I saw the doe eyes that Supergirl and Starfire throw at you two every time they come to the watchtower to visit you, she said and glared at him. So that's why you asked if Starfire was coming with me. You were worried? He laughed incredulously. She made the mistake to look up and Naruto saw her face slightly flushed in jealousy. It made him laugh at how adorable she was. So cute, he said with a grin and kissed the top of her head. He knew that if QB could see him right then he would have laughed at his shit-eating grin, but he could not help it. A warrior princess over 3,000 years old was acting jealous over 2 teenage girls. She was just too cute. That grin would not leave his face anytime soon. If anything, I should be the one to worry that you'll forget about me and go for a more handsome man, Naruto teased. Diana shook her head. Not a chance. While my civilian identity may be rather popular with men, I rarely interact with regular people. I couldn't be with one either. As for who I really am, Wonder Woman, it seems that men don't like me all that much. Naruto looked at her strangely. What's with that look? You're totally clueless, aren't you? Naruto said in wonder. A very interesting idea came to his mind and he smiled in amusement. Come, let's go to the conference room and access Earth's internet from the computer in there. I want to show you something. Though a bad feeling started creeping in her heart, Wonder Woman followed him there, her hand glued to the entire time. Asked by Naruto, she took a seat and operated the computer. Go to Google and type in the search bar Wonder Woman hentai. Yeah, just like that. Now go to the image section. The mouse in her hand was suddenly crushed into a ball of plastic and metal. What in Athena's name is this? She sputtered in disbelief. I swear on the sticks, I never dash. She could not even find her words. She was shocked. I know it's not you, he reassured her. Then she began to say agitated. The Earthlings seem to have an unwritten rule on their internet. If something exists, there is porn for it. Give it some time and I'm sure even Karama and I will appear drawn in some obscene postures too soon. Naruto had lived in the Watchtower for almost 1 month. With the help of his shadow clones, he had learned the English language to the point where he could understand, speak, and even write it without a translating device. He still chose to use his translating device to communicate with the others though, because his pronunciation and accent were a bit off, but he had become very familiar with Earth's internet during that time. Oh wow! Look, there is even an image of you in your new costume. You've changed your costume less than a month ago. Perverts really are fast when they put their mind to it, eh? He said half teasingly, half in amazement, but the next moment Diana's punch blasted a hole through the computer's monitor. He laughed out loud. Now, don't be angry. I just wanted to show you how wrong you were about men not liking you. Now you see? You're one of the most desired women on this planet. They're just scared to show it to your face. Then, he added like it was an afterthought. I gotta say though, I love your new costume much more than the one you had when I came here to capture Vandal Savage 1 month ago. Her previous anger melted like a miracle, and an uncharacteristically shy expression appeared on her face. You think so? She asked, secretly feeling giddy inside when she saw how his eyes roamed over her figure. Compared to her previous costume consisting of red boots, blue briefs, and a shoulderless red top, her current costume made her look more like the warrior princess that she was. She still had her golden lasso, her silver bracelets of submission and her golden tiara, but the rest of her costume was different. A white pair of skirts, a piece of clothing that looked like a skirt from outside, but were pants on the inside, replaced her briefs, her red boots were replaced by a pair of knee-high golden greaves, and her red top was replaced with a white top on which a large golden owl motif extended its wings over her breasts. It was goddess Athena's symbol. Her previously bare shoulders were covered by golden pauldrons. She wore 2 wing-like golden accessories on the sides of her face, and a white cloak covered her back, her neck, and the upper part of her chest. Yes, absolutely. Compared to before, one can tell you're royalty just by looking at you. Naruto said and nodded furiously, a testament to how much he appreciated her new costume. Wonder Woman revealed a bashful smile, and looked down while playing with a strand of her long hair. Naruto discovered a hard-to-believe fact: Wonder Woman, a warrior princess over 3,000 years old, was weak to compliments. Not long after that, the two lovebirds became immersed in their own little world again. For days after the incident caused by Lobo, another spaceship was detected by the watchtower. It was a small ship, no longer than 100 feet. There was only one person aboard, the pilot who came to deliver the ship to Naruto after he had bought it. There were not many members of the Justice League present in the watchtower at that moment because Naruto had not told them anything about his plans to leave. Besides Wonder Woman, who had spent every single second of the previous 4 days together with Naruto, the only other member of the Justice League present at the tower was Martian Manhunter. Not caring that the Martian Manhunter could see it, Diana poured her entire heart and soul in the goodbye kiss she shared with Naruto. Remember, whenever you want to talk, call me on my pad. And if there is anything you need my help with, I will drop everything I'm doing at that moment and rush to your side. Naruto said, and then took her in his arms one more time. After the Earth could no longer be seen from the spaceship, Naruto sighed deeply. Though his face was covered by his white fox ANBU mask, he did not want the temporary pilot of their ship to see his appearance. QB could easily sense his feelings with his negative emotion sensing. You don't need to feel lonely. You can come and see her anytime you want. MHM. Naruto made a sound of agreement. You know, I even think it's a good thing you didn't stay together now. QB said. That elicited a deep inhale of breath from Naruto. Eh? Why do you say so? I thought you liked her? The fox snorted at his overly defensive reaction. I do like her. She is a good human. But in the last 4 days, you've been eating each other's faces up almost non-stop. We did not. Naruto made a weak attempt at contradicting him, but a pointed look from QB shut him up. Maybe because it was the first time he had fallen in love for real with a woman, or maybe it was because he had repressed his feelings and biological needs as a man for decades due to his obsession with finding a way back to his homeworld. The real reason was not clear for Naruto either, but the passion he felt for Wonder Woman was like a smoldering volcano. Wonder Woman's situation was no different either after living for almost 3 millennia on Themyscira with no men around. The two of them had spent almost 100% of the last 4 days in physical contact with each other. They had not made the final step yet, but other than that, they did not leave from each other's arms, much to the rest of the Justice League's chagrin, since there were only 5 of them to fight against crime now that Hawkgirls left and Wonder Woman would not leave Naruto's room. If your feelings for each other are real, the distance will only make your love grow stronger. But if what you feel for each other is limited to just lust and physical attraction, the distance will quickly make them die down. Kyuubi said. And how would you know that? You're a bijou. Naruto said, annoyed just at the thought that what he and Wonder Woman felt for each other might not be real. I've seen that happen many times before with other humans. I've lived for over 1,000 years, and don't forget that I was sealed inside Mito, and your mother, for almost 80 years too. While sealed for almost 1 century, there was not much left for me to do other than to observe the humans outside. I have my negative emotion sensing too. I may be a bijou, but there aren't many beings that know more about human feelings and emotions than I do. I certainly know more than you do at the very least. The fox said arrogantly. Humans are very fickle beings, and their feelings and emotions are even more than so. Best friends can become enemies in an instant, despite years of friendship, and children can turn against their parents and vice versa without much difficulty. You and Diana have met only a few weeks ago, and you've been together for just 3 to 4 days. It's a few years too early for you to blindly put your trust in her feelings like that. Chances are that you're just lusting for each other. It's too early to tell. Naruto let out another long sigh and gave up on arguing with the fox after hearing his explanation. He knew that when the fox was not playing around, his wisdom was league beyond his. The fox had lived 10 times as long as him. Deep inside he understood the truth in his words. You might be right, Karama-sensei, he said half seriously, half jokingly. I guess some time apart would serve us well, both me and Diana. Diana. Chapter 18 Prelude. Is Naruto still in meditation? The hologram of a white and gold-armored woman asked. It was Wonder Woman. Still there, answered the deep voice of a male. It came from an elephant-sized 9-tailed fox. Currently, that giant fox's large tails were stirring up gales of wind as they wagged in the air. The reason for his happiness was the still warm carcass of an enormous beast lying at his feet. His powerful jaws were crushing through its bones and ripping entire chunks of meat from it effortlessly. Is that a dinosaur? Wonder Woman asked, startled. Kyuubi licked a large amount of blood staining his whiskers before answering. No clue what a dinosaur is. But it's so tasty and it's huge. After that, he went back to devouring his prey. Though the beast's body was 4 times larger than his, Kyuubi needed less than 2 minutes for the rest of the dinosaur-like creature to disappear into his stomach. With his hunger satiated now, the fox became significantly more talkative. He might not look the part, but that idiot is a sage. Staying a few days or a week immersed in his connection with nature is nothing much to him. In that state, his body recovers more easily, gets purified, and it becomes more attuned to natural energy. A sound of surprise came from the hologram emitted by the drone flying next to Kyuubi. If it's so good for him, why didn't you go directly to that place and came to Earth instead? She asked curiously. Instead of Kyuubi, it was unexpectedly someone else that replied. Be it pure or be it polluted, natural energy in its raw form is poisonous to humans. I don't use only natural energy. I combine natural energy with my own chakra to create senjutsu, which is an amalgam of both. Back then, I was hurt too badly and in no condition to properly manipulate natural energy. If I had absorbed any more of it at that time, I would have died. Going to Earth seeking sanctuary was a much better option, because I knew the bleeding heart of the Justice League would not turn us down if we came there while I was wounded like that. I didn't have fuel to come to this place even if I wanted anyway. This planet is extremely far away from the Vega system. It's several galaxies away. After he said that, the newcomer revealed a smile and said teasingly, How are you, Diana? Do you miss me already? At the sight of him, Wonder Woman involuntarily mirrored his smile, but she tried to say nonchalantly, "I'm just checking up on you to see if you're okay. It's been a week, after all." A snort came from the huge fox behind Naruto. "Yeah, it's been a week. As if you totally didn't call me 5 times until now, starting from the very first day." Wonder Woman's stoic face suddenly flushed. "Karama. You said you wouldn't tell." She half yelled in embarrassment. QB laughed out loud at her expense, very pleased with himself. "Ha ha. I'll leave you 2 lovebirds by yourselves," he said and left. Meanwhile, Naruto gripped with a hand at his heart. Hearing QB saying that Diana tried to contact him 5 times already while he had been meditating filled him with warmth. The gap between how serious and stoic she was generally, and how she acted when she was flustered was too much. "Ah, my heart. This is no good, she's cute as hell. Any more than this, and I'll go back to Earth this instant." Even after the source of her embarrassment left, Diana's normally pale cheeks were still marred by a rosy color. Naruto motioned the drone to come closer to him, and then sat on the grassy ground with his back leaning against the trunk of a tree. "I missed you too," he said sincerely. Despite that only 1 week passed since he left the Earth, he already missed her. "Tell me, what have you been up to these days? Is everything all right over there?" Gladly accepting the change in the subject of their conversation, Wonder Woman replied. "It became rather hectic after the Justice Lord's incident. The government of the USA is now paranoid, thinking that someday the Justice League will also follow in their footsteps to assassinate the president and take over the planet. The United Nations didn't respond well to the Justice League becoming bigger either, saying that there's no reason for us to amass that much power. It's been one annoying meeting after another. No wonder Earth is still so backwater compared to other civilizations in the universe. You're all so divided. So many races, religions and countries fighting against each other for their own interests. How can you progress like that?" Wonder Woman inwardly agreed with what he said inside. The Justice League needed to become stronger. Earth has had too many close calls. From what I heard, a few years ago Darkseid almost took over the Earth and beat up Superman very badly, almost killing him. It was only thanks to the ruler of New Genesis, the High Father, that Earth was spared. Then, there was Imperium and its race too, about a year ago. They almost destroyed the planet. We defeated them by the skin of our teeth. But the funny thing is that the talk about Justice League becoming larger has not been brought up until after you came around. Eh? Why me? You gave us one more wake-up call. We were reminded once more that only 7 people are not enough to protect the Earth from invaders. That we need more strength, more manpower. Naruto scratched his cheek, rather embarrassed about what he was about to say. Don't mean to brag, but there aren't that many beings as powerful as I am. You can't really compare me to the average alien invaders out there. When your skin is thick enough to brag like that, why are you scratching your cheek? She said teasingly. Hey. The two of them laughed together. Still, things are coming together well. We've already gotten more than 30 new members over the past week. The 2 girls you've saved, Starfire and Supergirl, have joined the league too. Superman also roped in Aquaman too and convinced him to support it financially. We have another billionaire supporting us, Maxwell Lord, and there are 2 members among the Justice League that are very wealthy as well. So financial resources are not an issue, and we get new members every day, metahumans from all over the world. We are international already. We got members not only from the USA, but from Europe, India and Africa too. Naruto was not that familiar with the Earth's geography since, before he and Wonder Woman became lovers, he never cared about the Earth enough to study that. Nonetheless, he listened to Wonder Woman talk about what she had been up to with interest. Actually, we found something interesting. Japan has created a system different from other countries. They have agencies of heroes that manage and control the metahumans willing to serve. By the way, Japan is a country in the Asian continent, with over 100 million people.
That sounds interesting.
How does that work?
Naruto asked, genuinely curious.
The hero agencies are regulated by the law, and they pay taxes to the government too.
In exchange, they can hire and manage all metahumans that are willing to serve.
They still wear costumes and masks to protect their identity from the villain's retaliation, but they no longer need to have a civilian job too.
Their work is considered legal now, not just a vigilante's act.
They can work full-time as heroes and get paid for it.
The government even created a public high school for teaching metahuman kids how to be a professional hero. Everything is super organized. When I found out about their system, I also realized why we've never been to Japan to help out with arresting any rogue metahumans or to assist in case of natural disasters, because they're handling it perfectly by themselves. They don't need the Justice League over there.
Like that, the two of them talked without noticing the passing of time. They realized how long they had been chatting for only when the sky started getting darker.
I must have bored you talking about hero-related stuff for that long," Wonder Woman said apologetically.
Naruto shook his head.
Don't worry about it.
It was kind of refreshing. I've never talked like this with a girl until I met you.
You're my first girlfriend, have I told you that?
That's surprising, to say the least.
Wonder Woman said.
Why so? I've never been the most popular guy around.
You must be joking.
You have this charm that draws people to you.
Even Green Lantern, Superman, and the others, did you not notice?
They were torn between liking you and wanting to chase you away due to how dangerous you are.
Naruto chuckled at her words.
He was not convinced.
No way.
Back in my homeworld, I was an outcast. It was only in the last few months during my stay there those things had started to come around for me, but that's only because I literally convinced someone to bring people back to life from the dead. Until then, since Karama was sealed inside of me, I was just the demon brat in the eyes of the ordinary people, while for the government of my country, I was a human sacrifice, a weapon of war. On my home planet, people that had demons sealed inside them were used to maintain the balance of power between the strongest 5 nations on the continent. You could say that we were the equivalent of nuclear missiles on Earth. Whoever had the strongest Jinchuriki, or a higher number of them, held the advantage.
That's horrible, Wonder Woman said.
But he smiled. He did not seem that affected by his past anymore.
It wasn't all that bad though.
I had good times as well.
And I think it's because I was a Jinchuriki that I got to meet great people too. My mentor, Jiraiya, an ant-like figure named Tsunade, and also Gaara, a friend who was just like me.
That reminds me, if Jiraiya-sensei could see you, even his ghost would die of blood loss, haha. He was a massive pervert. The biggest pervert I've ever met. Seeing you, especially when you were wearing your previous costume, would have been fatal.
What's that supposed to mean? What's wrong with the way I used to dress?
Naruto felt a sensation of danger, but he braved in with no hesitation.
You want the straight answer, or the sensible one?
He asked and then chuckled when she saw her narrowing her eyes. Your costume looked like something a hooker would wear.
Naruto,
she yelled. Several hours passed and the two of them were still filled with as much energy as when they just started. By now, it was already midnight.
3 moons of various sizes were shining brightly above his head. It's beautiful, isn't it? Naruto asked and directed the camera at the sky.
It was not only the 3 moons that were shining, but the night sky was also brightly lit up by countless clusters of stars, and even distant nebulas could be seen. With no artificial lights at all and with the planet's peculiar location in the universe, that night sky was something one could find on very few other planets. Violet, red, yellow, blue, and even green lights gave the night sky an otherworldly feeling.
It is amazing, Wonder Woman said in genuine awe.
I discovered this planet by accident while wandering through the boundless void outside the known universe. I have traveled for so many years and to so many places, but I have yet to see a place as beautiful as this. I named this planet Maya Boko. 1. He sighed wistfully and said, I wish you were here with me now to see it in person. The two of them stood silent for a while, just watching the night sky together. Since they started their conversation several hours ago, it was the first time they were silent. Say, Naruto, will you come to spend the Christmas together with me? It's a winter holiday people celebrate on Earth. Originally, it was a religious celebration, but it lost its meaning with time. Now, it is mostly a holiday when people exchange gifts and spend time together with their family. Oh, we had something similar back in my homeworld. It was called the Rinne Festival. But I've never celebrated it before. Naruto said. His voice was a bit melancholic. I haven't celebrated the Christmas on Earth either because I only came to the man's world last year, and I didn't have anyone to celebrate it with back then. Wonder Woman said. Then, she smiled and added in a soft voice, but now I have you. He felt a rush of warmth in his heart at her words. I've never been a big fan of the holidays. To an orphan like me, it used to be the time of the year when I was the loneliest. But now I'm looking forward to it. I'm glad I met you, Diana. I am in love with you. A hint of pink appeared in her cheeks, and she smiled shyly. Unwittingly, she rolled a strand of her long black hair around her finger. It gave her an excuse to look down and prevent him from seeing her flustered face. Kook. That gap mo will be the death of me someday. Naruto said and gripped with a hand at his chest again when he saw her reaction. She was as weak to his compliments as ever, and he was as weak to her cuteness as always. They were both deadly to each other. Seriously, you haven't bothered to study the geography of Earth, but you learned all kinds of degenerated things from the internet. She rebuked him, but that half-annoyed, half-embarrassed expression on her face only served to make him grin wider. HNG, what's wrong with the internet? If there is anything great at Earth, it's the internet. I've never come across something as good as that on any other planet. I quite enjoyed it, especially the digital art with you in them. Look, I even downloaded some of them for my own use. Then, he grabbed another device and showed her an image of her at the beach. In that image, Wonder Woman was leaning on her elbows on the counter of a beach bar with her voluptuous breasts almost spilling out of the white bikini top she was wearing. Furthermore, her long black hair was wet, her white teeth were biting softly into her red lower lip, and her eyes were looking ahead half-narrowed, seductively. Obviously, it was a fake picture. The Amazon princess had never been to a beach after she left the island of paradise. But Diana exploded. What do you mean for your own use? Naruto. I swear to great Athena when I get my hands on you dash. It was in the wee hours of the morning that Naruto and Diana finally ended their conversation. Though quite some time passed since then, he was still smiling, glowing with happiness. Is this what I've been missing on for almost 100 years? In his obsession with finding a way back to his homeworld, he had purposely avoided unnecessary contact and personal relationships with other people. He had not wanted to become distracted from his goal. Because of that, as years passed and he watched all the death and destruction happening on a large scale across the universe, his heart grew colder and more indifferent. He became jaded. However, in spite of that, in just a little over 1 month, that layer of stone isolating his heart from the world outside cracked. Not knowing when or how, a black-haired warrior princess had sneaked past his defenses and slipped into his heart. There were over a dozen job offers pending his answer from other information brokers that had jumped in at the chance to fill the void left by Ruenak's death, but he was in no mood to work or do anything else. Now, all he could think of was Diana. He was still drunk with happiness from the time he spent talking with her when a loud beeping sound came from his lightwave communication device. Who could it be? He wondered absent-mindedly when he did not recognize the number calling him. Seeing as it was not Diana, he ignored it and went back to watching the sky while thinking about her. But several minutes passed and the beeping would not stop.
Fine, god damn it, hope their house was burning or something cause I'll be pissed if they bother me for no reason, he muttered to himself in annoyance. Making a clawing motion with his hand, his white fox ANBU mask materialized over his face. When he hit the accept button, it was a muscular man dressed in a red suit and wearing a winged silver helmet on his head that appeared. What the hell? Though they had never met in person until then, as a well-informed intergalactic mercenary, Naruto knew that man's identity. It was none other than Orion, one of the strongest and most valiant among the new gods of New Genesis. He was a rather famous character in the universe for his repeated clashes with the ruler of Apocalypse, Darkseid. Someone like that calling him on his personal lightwave device was not something that he had seen it coming. I am Orion of New Genesis. The god introduced himself. I know who you are. What does a god need from a mortal like me? Naruto asked. Though his words seemed polite, the tone he spoke them with was far from that. He had no reverence for anyone that called themselves gods. Not after witnessing the terror of the void, the power of the universe. In front of something like that, even gods were little more than insects. Whether Orion noticed his disrespectful tone or not would remain a mystery, because he answered to Naruto's question without pause, right away. I need you to kill my father. Chapter 19 A New Bounty. Whether Orion noticed his disrespectful tone or not would remain a mystery, because he answered to Naruto's question without pause, right away. I need you to kill my father. From daydreaming happily about the girl he was in love with to being told to assassinate someone's father, it was too much of a jump. I beg your pardon? Momentarily, he thought that he heard wrong. You want me to kill Highfather? I don't kill everyone, bub. Look here and read what it says. Taking out one of his business cards, he pointed with this index finger at the part where it said he took assassination bounties but for scumbags only. Orion shook his head. Highfather is not my biological father. My real father is Darkseid. Previously, Apocalypse and New Genesis had been locked in a war for tens of thousands of years. However, an uneasy truce was established when Darkseid and Highfather exchanged their newborn sons. Darkseid's son, Me, was given to Highfather and vice versa. The terms of the non-aggression pact between the two societies of gods were not known to the general public. Naruto had not known about them until then either. The gods were generally shrouded in mystery and not much was known about them besides some of their feats. In the first place, the new gods lived in a different dimension altogether. Why ask me of all people? Better yet, why not do it yourself? Orion said bitterly. I've tried to kill Darkseid my entire life. But I couldn't. He is too powerful and always surrounded by his nigh unbeatable army and countless parademons. And now with the truce between Apocalypse and New Genesis, invading Apocalypse by myself could spark the start of a new great war. I'll never do something like that. I won't spit on Highfather's efforts to maintain the peace. But, although immortal, you have enough power to even destroy a planet, without the use of technology. That is a feat I could never replicate. You could destroy Apocalypse and Darkseid together. Naruto sighed. I'm afraid I'll have to refuse this bounty. Orion immediately became angry. Why? He shouted. Billions of innocent people were massacred by Darkseid and his army in his crusades. You have the power to end it all. Why aren't you doing anything? In contrast, Naruto was as calm as the water of a still lake. He could not just willy-nilly destroy a planet. He nearly paid with his life for amassing that much power before. His power was restricted by the environment. He grew stronger the more power he siphoned from the world. But it could also work against him like it did on the Psion's planet. There are limits to my power. There are certain conditions to be fulfilled in order for me to obtain that kind of strength. If those conditions are fulfilled, then yes, killing Darkseid, or you or anyone really, would be like killing chickens. Otherwise, I can't defeat a god like Darkseid, to say nothing of his army,
and those mutated beasts you call parademons. If he were to fight anyone on Maya Boku, on his untainted and pristine planet, he could stomp even on gods like they were bugs. On a planet like Apocalypse, however, a wasteland of fire and smoke, he would be nowhere near that level. But even if I was strong enough to do it, I would still not accept your bounty. Though Orion's head was covered by the winged silver helmet he was wearing, Naruto could discern that his face was contorted in anger. The new god had some very pronounced anger management issues. Supposedly you're a god. Don't you know how the universe works? Do you need me, a mortal, to spell it for you? Seeing Orion not replying, Naruto continued. Light and darkness, good and evil, life and death, creation and destruction. The universe cannot exist without a balance of both. No matter how much you fight against the evil, you could never eradicate it. I annihilated the Psion race almost 2 months ago. Do you think that my deed was all that great? Bitter laughter came from him. What do you mean by that? Orion asked, this time calmer than before. Naruto's obscure words had sobered him up. I liberated the Vega system from the Psion's tyranny. That is indeed a great deed if you look at it alone. But less than 2 months passed since the Psions were killed. Wait a few more months or years and you will see, a new power of darkness will rise to take their place. Obviously, it won't be in the same place. But mark my words, in the following months or years, a new intergalactic power will appear, an intergalactic power hellbent on conquering and destruction. He raised his head and looked at the sky. The first signs of the morning started to appear at the horizon as pale orange rays of light shoot away the darkness of the night. It's almost poetic. I was like the daybreak when I brought light upon the Vega system. But while morning comes here, on the other side of the planet, evening falls. Just like that, while the Vega system was liberated, in another part of the universe, darkness will rise. This is the law of the universe. There is always a balance between light and darkness. Once the balance tips in favor of either of the two, it will be destroyed. Looking back at his device, he told Orion. Do you understand now? Even if you somehow manage to kill Darkseid, it would amount to nothing. Another one will rise to take his place. This is the truth of this world. This is the truth that I've come to know. No matter how powerful you are, no matter if you are a god or an all-powerful being, you could never extinguish evil. Then why did you annihilate the Psions if you knew another force would take their place? Why do all that if it's meaningless? Orion countered. But it wasn't meaningless for me. The Psions wanted to capture me and make me their toy. For the universe at large, the Psions' destruction is nothing, but for me it was crucial. I don't have to live my life looking over my shoulder in fear of their plots. The Psions were a powerful race, one of the most technologically advanced races in the universe. Having such a threat looming over my head at all times would undoubtedly spell my death eventually if I didn't do something about it. But Darkseid and I have no friction. He never acted against me. Why should I take on such a dangerous job for no reason? As I said, even if Darkseid died, another god of evil will rise in his place. There must always be a god of evil, and don't tell me I should do it for the reward. What reward could be worth it for me to go fight against the god of evil and his intergalactic army by myself? That's suicide. You want me to do what you, High Father, and your army of gods could not do even after dozens of thousands of years. Do you hear yourself? Orion became silent for a few moments. When put that way, he realized how ridiculous it sounded for him to ask of one man and a demon fox to do what he and an army of gods could not do even after thousands and thousands of years. He let out a deep sigh. He understood why would that be seen as a suicidal mission. Though they could not close the deal, he did not end the call right away and, instead, he asked a question regarding the words that the blonde had told him before. If what you say about evil being indestructible is true, what is the point of fighting? What is the point of it all? With such a bleak look on life, how does one muster the will and strength to continue on living?
Somehow, from offering an assassination bounty, they ended up discussing the meaning of life. You fight to achieve your goals. You may never be able to eradicate the darkness, but that doesn't mean you cannot live in the light. You may never be able to protect every single being in the universe, but you could always devote yourself to protecting the ones you love and care about. You may never achieve peace in the universe at large, but you could make peace in your house, in your city, in your country, in your homeworld. Naruto said. Life in itself has no meaning. You give your own life meaning when you find something and devote yourself to it. And that could be anything. It could be your family, it could be your job, or it could even be a hobby or a passion like music or fishing. Not long after that, their conversation ended and Naruto went back to watching the sky, also thinking about the words that he had told Orion. A sudden voice came from his shoulder, startling him. Not knowing when, Kyuubi had returned at his side. So, you found a new purpose in life? Previously, Naruto's reason to live, his goal, had been to find a way back to the elemental nations. He had devoted nearly a century of his life to it, completing over 3,000 bounties and traveling through the universe unceasingly for it. It had been more than just a goal, it had been an obsession. But, when Kyuubi gave him a wake-up call and he finally realized the futility of it all, he had been broken. He had been lost. Let me guess, it has to do with a certain warrior princess, doesn't it? Kyuubi pressed on and chuckled. Naruto flicked his snout, making the fox let out a yelp. So, what if it does? He grumbled. Yeah, you're gonna say it's too early, but that's how I feel now. I can't help it, okay? I like her a lot and I'm happy. What's wrong with that? Nothing is wrong per se, but the higher the expectations, the bigger the disappointment if things fall down. So, I'll say it again, it's too early. Silence instilled between the two of them for a while. Eventually, Kyuubi said. Oi, how about you wipe that disgusting smile off your face and do some work? Naruto threw the fox off his shoulder in annoyance. What's wrong with my smile? He retorted. What's so disgusting about it? The fox snorted. HNG. That love-struck face you're making is gross. I threw up a little in my mouth. Naruto stood up and started rubbing his fists. Looks like you got a lot of courage after getting a win over me on Earth while I was weakened. Come, Karama-sama, let's have another go at it now that I've fully recovered. Kyuubi revealed a scared face, and he jumped from his place as if he had springs in his legs. You won't get away. Naruto hollered after him and threw himself into his pursuit. Man and Fox started shinobi jumping at breakneck speeds through the virgin jungle, greatly startling the creatures in their way. Using his 4 limbs and his 9 tails, Kyuubi was unsurprisingly extremely agile while in the trees, even more than Naruto. You talk the talk but you can't walk the walk? Ha ha. Kyuubi yelled at his back and laughed, confident that Naruto was not going to catch up to him anytime soon. But the fox's laughter died in its throat when a particular dagger with an inscription written on its handle whirred by his ear, nearly nicking him. Kyuubi did not get scared by the dagger almost stabbing him, but he got scared about what he knew it was going to come next, and true to his predictions, a dark blonde-haired man appeared with his hand on the handle of the dagger, in midair, in a yellow flash of light. Cheater! Cheater! Was the only thing Kyuubi had the time to yell before Naruto kicked him down from the tree like a football. You're in an awfully good mood today, Naruto remarked. It's been quite some time since we went on a proper job, hasn't it? More than half a year. I kinda missed it. Kyuubi replied, his tails wagging happily behind him. I wonder who are we going to kill now? At his words, Naruto was surprised to realize that, indeed, they had not taken jobs like they used to ever since they rescued Superman from the Preserver's ship. He had been depressed for months after realizing that it was impossible to find a way back home. He had not taken any bounties in the meantime, just staying on his lush planet, Mayaboku, doing nothing but fishing and lazying around all day long. Then, when they finally accepted a bounty, it turned out to be bogus, a trap from the Psions and Rue Nak.
It was only now that they were finally going again on a proper job. Naruto bonked him on the head and chuckled. "We're not going to kill anyone this time. It's an espionage mission, you brute." After typing a few commands to the AI of the ship to adjust their course, Naruto said, "Man, I miss our old ship." After Kyuubi destroyed their previous ship while trying to get rid of the yellow power ring that had attempted to kidnap him, Naruto bought a new spaceship from the black market. "Why? This one is capable of space warping too, and it's pretty much the same size as the other one," the fox said. Naruto shook his head. "It's a bit slower and it doesn't have cloaking abilities, so we can't go incognito anymore. This mission would have been so much easier if we could go invisible like before." They were currently in the Milky Way galaxy Cygnus system. The objective of their new mission was to infiltrate the habitable planets in that planetary system and gather intelligence. "I say, screw the infiltrate thing and just smash your way through. Who's gonna stop us?" Kyuubi said arrogantly. Naruto chuckled at his words. "That's what our employer wants, secrecy, that's what we have to do," he said to placate the fox. "Besides, not all things can be solved with force. Not all the time." The fox sniffed but did not retort. "But who would have thought the Green Lantern Corps would send us a job offer? That Green Lantern from Earth said that they named you and I universal level threats. You'd think they'd want nothing to do with the likes of us," Naruto said in wonder. A few days ago, Diana called him on his lightwave device and told him that Jon Stewart had something very important to discuss with him. It turned out to be a job offer from the Guardians of the Universe. The two members of the Green Lantern Corps assigned to watch over the universe sector that included the Cygnus system of the Milky Way galaxy were suddenly killed a few weeks before. 2 new Green Lanterns were assigned to that sector, but they were killed shortly after that too. In total, 4 Green Lanterns died, without the Guardians even knowing the reason for their deaths. Before doing something drastic like invading the sector with a punitive force, the Guardians decided to take on a more subtle approach and use other means of obtaining some information first. The mercenary caterpillar was, not surprisingly, their first choice. That way, not only would they protect their core from further damage, but they would also create the opportunity to start a relationship with the powerful mercenary. 2 birds, 1 stone. Through the cockpit's window, a dark purplish marble could be seen in the distance. It was one of the very few habitable planets in the Cygnus system, Debstum. Chapter 20 Unrest. Through the cockpit's window, a dark purplish marble could be seen in the distance. It was one of the very few habitable planets in the Cygnus system, Debstum. Another short space warp later, they got close enough to the planet that they were about to enter the exosphere. The robotic voice of their ship's AI sounded. "Operator, you have received a new transmission. Should I play it?" At Naruto's confirmation, a yellow-skinned man wearing a military uniform appeared on the screen of the computer on board. "This planet is a restricted area. Aliens are not welcome. Return at once or we'll open fire." Right after that, the transmission ended. It was a very blunt and short message. But only moments later, the radar detected 5 warships. "See? That's why our previous ship was better. Scenes like this wouldn't have happened if our ship could become invisible." The fox closed his eyes and seemingly fell asleep, ignoring him. Naruto blew out a sigh and sat up from the pilot's seat. "I guess we'll just have to do it the hard way. I see you're no mood for this. Well, just stay here and protect the ship then. I'll head down alone." Kyuubi was not exactly the biggest fan of missions that involved subtlety. He would much rather stay in the ship and have a nap than sneak around without doing anything, with no action. He was kind of hoping Naruto would run into some kind of trouble for him to have an excuse to let loose. Nevertheless, he did not take any actions to ruin his bounty on purpose. Taking control of the ship, the fox drove it away from the planet to avoid an altercation with the small fleet of patrol ships. As for Naruto, his white ANBU fox mask covered his face, and a layer of yellow-red chakra enveloped his body, turning his previously black cloak and dark combat suit into a brightly glowing golden color. With his Nine Tails chakra mode, he could survive in the vacuum of space. Then, his hands went through a short sequence of hand seals, and his silhouette all of a sudden disappeared. A vague distortion in the air was the only sign left of his body. It was not perfect invisibility, but it was more than enough for him to infiltrate the planet undetected. It was a technique that his old mentor, Jiraiya, had created primarily to peep on women in bathhouses. Over the years, it had become a technique that Naruto relied on heavily when it came to missions that required secrecy. With his preparations ready, he exited the ship, into the outer space, and started flying towards the planet below. Unsurprisingly, Naruto managed to sneak past the network of satellites surrounding the planet without being detected. He took notice though of how heavily guarded and monitored the planet was. Come to think of it, Earth was the same too. Besides the Justice League's watchtower, they had thousands of other minor satellites that one would ignore at the first glance, but they were in fact all part of a bigger network. Whoever is controlling that network of satellites is a powerful man. I haven't had the chance to talk to Diana and ask her what she knows about it. I should warn her of it in case that system of satellites doesn't belong to the Justice League. All that Naruto could see in front of his eyes was an unending mass of gray and dark purple clouds. The entire planet was covered by this blanket of clouds, he could not see anything below. When he reached the upper limit of the troposphere, 9 miles above the ground, he instinctively reached out to make a connection with the nature of the planet to see its state. A deep frown creased his forehead behind the mask. This planet is dying. He sighed in sorrow. Another planet was going to be destroyed soon. Looking at the mass of dark purple clouds enveloping the planet, he wondered. What did the inhabitants do to cause this apocalypse? Are they still alive? It did not take him long to fly past the blanket of clouds and finally, he could see the real appearance of the planet. Coincidentally, he happened to fly above an urban settlement. Or better said, what was left of it. Going by the architecture of the buildings, the infrastructure, he could see at a superficial glance, and the vehicles sprawled on the ground. He deduced that it was a fairly advanced civilization, above Earth. At least it used to be. Now, the great city was in ruins. When he got closer to the ground, he could also see more corpses than he could count. The hell happened here? Landing next to a dead body, he put his hand on it and closed his eyes as he cast a diagnosis jutsu, one of the most used techniques by the medic Nins in his homeworld. To cast the technique itself was not difficult, even a genin could do it, but to interpret the results correctly was another matter. One had to possess knowledge of the human body to accurately diagnose an illness if there was one at all. That is to say, Naruto did not possess in-depth knowledge about the human body and its inner workings. He was not a medic, he had not received any education in that direction. However, even someone like him could understand what happened. Poison? Void, some madman must have released a virus and massacred the entire city. Reminds me of that intergalactic war in the Quasar Galaxy 70 years ago. The dead inhabitants of the city did not look like they were warmongering type, they looked like tall but thin humanoids with yellow skin and red eyes, but Naruto had learned a long time ago to not judge a book by its cover. Putting his hands in a cross-shaped seal, 100 shadow clones appeared next to him in a rather large plume of smoke. Spread across the planet and investigate. If you find something worth reporting, you can start dispelling 1 hour from now. Otherwise, keep investigating. Scatter. With a yelled yes boss. And a body flicker movement, the 100 clones vanished at the same time. As for the original body, he took flight and left the city, going towards a random direction too. He flew for almost 1,000 miles and he encountered more than 50 cities, big and small, in his path, but they were all in the same condition as the first city that he had stumbled upon. They were in ruins, with the entire population dead. Was everyone on the planet murdered with a biological weapon? Someone must have created this pandemic. Still, he could not be sure of it until he received the intel from the shadow clones that he had sent across the planet. Furthermore, he had to find the remains of the Green Lanterns as well, or at least find what had caused their deaths. Although he could make hundreds of shadow clones, it was not exactly an easy task to finish this mission in a short time. It was similar to looking for a needle in a haystack. After flying for a few hours, Naruto and his shadow clones had covered the bigger part of 3 out of the 5 continents of the planet. Not the wilderness or the villages/small towns, but the large urban agglomerations. Now, he was at the outskirts of a small forest, sitting with his back leaning against the trunk of a tree. He was resting. Taking out his lightwave communication device, he decided to take advantage of the resting period and call his girlfriend. "Hello?" A sleepy voice answered. "My bad, I called you at the wrong time," Naruto said quickly and was about to terminate the call. "NNG, don't worry. It's not night yet. I just fell asleep too early today. It's just 7 o'clock in the evening," Diana said and rubbed at her tired eyes. Taking a second look at her, Naruto realized that she was not in her sleeping clothes, but still in her white and gold armor. "Rough day?" he asked. "You don't know half of it," she said. "Did a natural disaster happen or something like that? I thought with the Justice League having almost 100 members by now it would become easier for you to handle any situation that might arise." No, at a first glance, things are great. Much better than ever actually. But something is worrying me about the general population. She hesitated a bit, taken a page out of your book, and started spending some time on the internet as well. Seeing a smirk appearing on his face, she added quickly. "Don't grin at me like that, I didn't do it for nasty reasons like you." Naruto laughed at her reaction. "No, I'm serious. I wanted to get more in touch with normal people and see what they think and how they look at things. To understand them better. On the internet, under the protection of anonymity, people are much more sincere than in reality. I've noticed a trend over the past 2 months. Something or someone is inciting the general opinion against the metahumans. I can't say I'm surprised, to be honest," Naruto replied. "Imagine you're a weak and helpless person, just trying to go to work and provide for your family, for your kids, and then one day your entire workplace disappears because Superman fought against someone and demolished 3 buildings in the process. Or imagine you made a loan to buy yourself an expensive car and paid for it with your sweat and blood and, the next day, some crazy metahuman blows it up in a fit of anger. How would you feel? To see the result of years of work and effort disappear in the blink of an eye just like that?" Wonder Woman was momentarily silent. "I understand your point. I saw many other people saying similar things on the forums. But look at the alternative. If we didn't stand up to stop the criminals, who would do it? What would happen? What's more important, some material possessions or people's lives?" She took off the golden wing ornaments framing the sides of her face and buried her face in her palms tiredly. "There's no real solution to this situation. As long as conflict exists, material damages are inevitable. It feels like every day, people appreciate less and less what we do to keep them safe. No matter what we do, it's never good enough. Others say that we should just kill the criminals and put them down like rabid dogs, for good, while Are you opposed to that?" Naruto suddenly asked. Diana shook her head slowly. "No. I understand that some people can't be redeemed. But nobody will ever be willing to cross that line among the Justice League. In the first place, who gives us the right to decide who gets to live and who gets to die? Once we do something like this, the government and the United Nations will finally have a pretext to openly move against us. Once that happened, it could even escalate into a civil war if worse came to worst." "Civil war?" Naruto scoffed. "What could they do against the Justice League? You're so much more powerful than them that you can't call that a war. It would be a one-sided beatdown. I don't know about that. Batman discovered signs of a secret organization affiliated with the government of the USA recruiting metahumans for a suicide squad, presumably preparing to move against us if the opportunity appeared. As I said, things are becoming more hectic and complicated with every passing day. And this anti-metahuman movement gets new supporters at an alarming pace. Superman and I are having it the worst. Many people blame him for what he did a few years ago, while being mind-controlled by Darkseid. As for me, did you do something too? Not long after I left Themyscira, one of my Amazon sisters, Arisia, started an epidemic. She used a virus that only affected men, trying to annihilate the male population. While we managed to defeat her quickly, before the epidemic could become a pandemic, there were still many men that died, especially among the elderly. People are afraid that I'm a lunatic bound to snap one day as she did. 2. Sorry for complaining like that. I just have no one else I could talk to about these things. And I work so hard. 15 to 20 hours a day, every day, fighting crime, saving people from burning houses, preventing accidents, arresting terrorists, and patrolling the cities. It's not just me. The entire Justice League is like that. We work so hard to keep everyone safe. And at the end of the day, we get home just to hear people throw curses at us and TV show anchors mocking our names or costumes and criticizing everything we do. She quickly wiped a tear that was about to fall from the corner of her eye. I'm sorry. Don't be. I'm here for you not just when we're joking and flirting around, but when you're sad and need to talk about your problems too. Naruto said kindly. After I'm done with this job, I promise I'll come to visit you, okay? It will do you good to have a break from all that hero-related stuff, and just relax for a day or two. She perked up at his words and her eyes brightened. Where are you now, by the way? What's your current mission? She asked. Didn't Green Lantern tell you? You should know by now how he is. It's Green Lantern core business, therefore, it's classified. Diana said, mimicking Jon Stewart's voice. The two of them chuckled together. I'm investigating the death of 4 members of the Green Lantern Corps. They appear to have died in the Cygnus system, Milky Way galaxy. They want me to dash. Naruto, what is that? Behind you. Wonder Woman suddenly yelled, greatly startling him. Hurriedly, he jumped up and flipped his body in the air. It was just in time to slip past a very thick vine-like tentacle that had tried to sneakily wrap around his neck. He had been so focused on his conversation with Wonder Woman that he had completely forgotten about his surroundings. Fuck, that's gross. Naruto cursed. Gotta hang up, Diana, talk to you later. Promise. He said and tried to end the call, but a mass of vine-like tentacles soundlessly fell from the crown of the tree above, right onto the back of his head. He fell on his knees and became immobile, the lightwave communication device falling from his hands. Only Wonder Woman's horrified voice could be heard as she called out to him desperately. Naruto! Wake up! Naruto! A disgusting mass of tentacles covered Naruto's face and torso completely, only leaving him some space to breathe and nothing else. That's it for this reading. Hit like and subscribe for a free ticket pass going to the different worlds of anime fanfictions. Looking forward to having you on board again.